May I speak to you in the name of God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Now the crowd who was standing there heard it and said that it was thunder. Reading these words, my first thought is just come on, people. You just heard the voice of God. And we know that they heard it because right after, some others thought that it was an angel speaking to them. And then Jesus himself says that the voice was there for their benefit, not for his. So unlike at his baptism, where we are unsure if only Jesus heard that voice or if everyone heard that voice, it's pretty clear that this voice was spoken for all to hear it. But the crowd that was standing there who heard it said that it was thunder. I think by the crowd we read that as the majority of the people that were there. Some of them, a few maybe, heard something, heard a voice, but thought it was an angel or something bigger and greater than themselves, but didn't really fathom just how great it was, just what it was. Maybe a few others may have known what was happening, but what we know for sure is that the majority of the people there, the crowd standing there who heard it, thought that it was thunder. Come on, people. God is speaking in your midst, and you can't hear it. That's been troubling me this week as I've been thinking about this passage. And then yesterday, as I was taking Tucker for a walk in the morning, I started listening to a podcast on philosophy and started at the beginning. And it's going chronologically. So it starts with the pre-Socratic thinkers. And towards the end of this episode, the guy doing it gave sort of a disclaimer, which probably should have come at the beginning, but still, he said it anyway. And he said that, these people that he had just been talking about, teaching about, these thinkers from a couple thousand years ago, we know now that everything they put forward, that all their ideas, the systems they put forward were wrong. And it's easy for us, looking back on them with these backwards, wrong thoughts, to think how much smarter we are than they were. But the thing is, we have the benefit of history. We have the benefit of assumed knowledge that they did not have. These guys, and unfortunately it was all guys, these guys were coming up with these things with nothing. They were putting together these systems of thought with no basis. So while their ideas were wrong, it doesn't mean that we are necessarily smarter than they are. It means that we have a lot of benefits. We have a lot of advantages that they did not have. I think that applies to this story, to that reaction I had of, come on, guys, he is speaking in your midst. It is a voice from heaven. It doesn't get more clear than that. I've read this passage I don't know how many times. It tells us, the narrator tells us, it is the voice of God speaking. It's easy for us to read this and say, come on, guys, why aren't you getting this? But really, who knows how we would have responded if we had been there? I think chances are, most of us, myself included, would have been like, oh wow, it's a really bright day, but did you guys hear that thunder? There are no clouds in the sky. What's going on? We like to think we'd be that select few who may have thought it was an angel, or maybe even the fewer who might have known what was going on. But that's just because we know the story. We, looking back, know that it was a voice from God. Chances are, most of us would have missed it. And I say that because we're really good at doing that. People, humans. We're really good at missing the things that try to break into our day. We see what we expect to see, what we want to see. We hear what we expect to hear. So when something strange happens, our minds very quickly explain it away. Oh, it's thunder. Voices don't come from heaven. Had to be thunder. How many of you are familiar with the show Doctor Who? All right, this is about what I expected, about what we had at the earlier service too. So for those of you who don't know, and I think this is why most people don't know what it is, it's a show on BBC, a British show, about an alien who travels through time and space. So I didn't expect a lot of people to know what it was. The Doctor's ship is shaped like a 1950s British police call box. Think a combination of a phone booth and a blue shed. That's what it looks like. And whenever he's traveling with people, they ask why, and he explains that it's got this mechanism that helps it blend in wherever it lands so it doesn't stick out. But it got broken sometime in the 1950s in London, so it looks like this 1950s police call box from Britain. Still, if that plunked down in our yard, we would notice that. So then, who's ever traveling with a mask, well, we don't see these anywhere anymore. Think of the last time you saw a phone booth. It probably would stick out. We don't see those anymore. So they asked, why don't people notice this box? And the Doctor always says something along the lines of, we humans are really good at seeing what we want to see and not seeing what we don't want to see. And that continues throughout the show as there are alien invasions and encounters, and except for the really, really big ones, people just forget them and explain them away as something else. Now, I'd like to think if we had those kind of experiences, we might notice it, but I think it's really getting at something with that idea that we don't recognize the extraordinary when it reaches into our ordinary lives. That we explain it away as thunder. We rarely recognize that it's a voice from the heavens, but it's thunder or trucks driving by or whatever else our minds tell us to avoid recognizing that something extraordinary is breaking into our lives. And that applies to our faith lives as well. That applies to when God is trying to reach out to us. Now, I don't think we get the same things that Jesus does. I don't think God's going to speak from the heavens to us, but I do believe that he is still speaking to us, just in much subtler ways, which makes it even harder to hear, makes it even easier to explain away. Makes it even easier to come up with something else that could have been. To paint over the extraordinary with our ordinary lives. I don't remember how we got onto the topic, but on Friday morning at our Bible Challenge group, we started talking a little bit about people who are spiritual but not religious. So people who don't need denomination, don't need a faith tradition to feel some kind of connection with whatever it is that is greater than ourselves. And I can understand a good chunk of what those people are talking about. How they can recognize something greater in nature. How they don't need to experience God just in the confines of this room or a room slightly like it. But where it falls apart for me, and it might just be me, but where it falls apart for me is that condition we have of how easily we ignore the extraordinary reaching out to us. How easily we see what we expect to see and hear what we expect to hear. I doubt I'm alone in saying that not every Sunday morning I want to get up really early and come here. I'm alone and I have to be here unless I've arranged for someone else to be here. But I imagine some of you feel that as well. Some Sundays it might be beautiful outside. It's a little cold today, but it's gorgeous out. Why not go for a walk? Or Carmen got home at 1:30 last night. She's been away for the past couple of days for work. So I was woken up at 1:30. And actually didn't really even fall asleep until then because I knew she'd be driving home from Boston and was a little worried and all that. So I was kind of tired this morning, and it would have been great to stay in bed and not get here for 7 a.m. And maybe experience God over a cup of coffee and a good book or on a walk with my family. But the problem with that is it wouldn't challenge me at all. When we come here, when we gather together, chances are you've heard things read from this lectern. You've heard things I've said that have troubled you, that you haven't agreed with, that have pushed you out of your comfort zone. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you've heard things read here or heard me say things, and I bet this one happens a little more often, that are just amazing and make things click for you. You were supposed to laugh at that. I don't really think I'm that good every week.
You're amazing.
I don't want the video to think I'm that conceited. But sometimes you'll hear things that challenge you, that you disagree with, that push you out of your comfort zone. Sometimes you'll hear things in a new light you haven't heard before that just make something click. That just make perfect sense. That open up some aspect of who Jesus is and who he is calling us to be that you hadn't seen before. I'm not going to get that at home in bed with a cup of coffee. I'm not going to get that out on a walk with my family on a gorgeous day. I might feel some connection to something greater than myself, but I'm only going to get what I expect. I'm only going to get what I see and what I hear. Being a part of a worshiping congregation, being a part of a faith tradition bigger than myself, spanning thousands of years with wisdom and traditions passed down. That helps to open me up, as blind as I might be, as deaf as I might be, to seeing and hearing where God might be reaching out to me. We can get that connection elsewhere. We can't get that help elsewhere. Well, maybe other people can. I can't. I need the discipline of coming here. Not even week after week. We do morning prayer every day because I need that. I need that constant of a reminder, that constant of a push out of my comfort zone, a push out of my ordinary, so that I might get a glimpse of that extraordinary breaking in. We can't do this on our own. That's why we have these buildings. That's why we gather together. Not because every week I'm going to say something brilliant, but by coming together, by living out the disciplines handed down to us through thousands of years of tradition. We might occasionally be pushed enough to get those glimpses where God is reaching out to us, where God is trying to speak to us, but we're trying to hear thunder. Next week is Palm Sunday, and we begin Holy Week. And during Holy Week, at the end, we're going to celebrate the Triduum, the great 3 days. Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, and the Easter Vigil. If you'll notice, at the end of every service we do, there is a dismissal. I say something along the lines of, let us go forth in the name of Christ. Let us go in peace. Let us go in, I can't remember them all off the top of my head. But you know them. And that's the end of the service. We say it at the back after that final hymn today because it's the end of the service. In the Triduum, on Thursday we're going to gather here and we're going to leave in silence, and we're not going to have that dismissal. We're going to come back on Friday in silence, And we're going to leave again in silence and come back on Sunday. Because it's 3 days, but it's one service. And that service is the heart of our liturgical year. It's the heart of who we are as Christians. And as much as the discipline of coming here week after week as we are able, of hearing Scripture read, of talking about it, of sharing our ideas around it, of being pushed and prodded by each other. As much as that opens us up, breaks us out of our ordinary lives so we can get a glimpse of that extraordinary, the Triduum does that even more. If you haven't done it already, I encourage you to come out, not just for 1 or 2 days, but do the whole thing. Open yourselves up to the voice of God speaking to you. Try not to hear that thunder. Come to this service and experience the depth, the breadth of the tradition handed down to us. Hear who God is calling us to be. Let that service push you out of your ordinary and give you a glimpse of the extraordinary. It does that so much more than our, I don't want to call them normal Sunday services because they're anything but normal, but compared to this, that's what they are. This 3 days, this one service, is what feeds our other Sunday services. So I encourage you all to come out to it, to take a step out of your ordinary and get a glimpse of what God is calling you to do, calling you to be. Catch a glimpse of what God is saying to you. Amen.